we started off with the ministry. In fact, we've had two official visits now, one to Brazil, and then we had another to Cape Verde. The ministry has been able to secure the approval of the cabinet, and what we are now embarking on is on the policy framework for the homegrown school feeding. I must say we've been set aback as a result of this drought, because all our efforts now are towards, providing the temporary assistance to people who are finding it difficult, to access food. But we're still on track. We had a meeting today, well attended by the Ministry of Agriculture was there, the Ministry of Health was there, over 10 different partners were present, where we've now come to the agreement to develop an action plan which would look at the immediate, the medium term, and the long term school feeding program. So I'm hopeful that if even we are unable to establish a homegrown school feeding program this year, we definitely would be able to implement an emergency school feeding, which would lead into the medium and long term, which eventually is what the government is aiming at. But the landscape. We usually believe that you have three categories of the population. And when you have scarcity of food, the most vulnerable are the kids. And so what we are saying is that if we can provide one hot meal for the kid at school, recognizing that because of limited resources, we would not be able to reach all the households in the rural areas. Now, in school, obviously, you would have all the kids in school. So regardless of those households you are targeting in the rural areas, if some of these households are not targeted, the kids definitely would have at least one meal in school. And we've done our analysis, and we recognize that to feed a child a day with one hot meal would cost around 20 to 25 cents of the dollar. So recognizing that you are providing that critical food to the kid, there are also a number of multiplier effects. For example, we are going to use this super cereal, high micronutrient vitamin corn soy blend, which would not only meet the dietary requirement of the kid, but also help maintain the nutritional status of the kid and allow the kids to be in school. So there is a win-win when it comes to school meals. In the appeal, stated that to feed every school kid in Zimbabwe, at least for a year, they would need 199 million. Now, with us, what we are looking at is first to target the 5 severe food insecure districts, looking at probably between 150 to 200,000 kids. And we reckon that would be something like 15 to 20 million, over a 9-month, the whole school year. Now, if funding is available, obviously we have the capacity to expand. So that's what we are working on. We would start off with probably the 5 most food insecure districts and then expand. Well, WFP is a voluntary funded organization. We have what we call traditional donors, that is from mostly the Western countries. But over the last 10 years, our biggest donor has been the USA. Even in Zimbabwe, the USA has been our biggest donor. Last year, they contributed about $35 million towards our program. And this year, they've already also confirmed 10 million. We are now liaising with them to see exactly how much they would be able to contribute with this new appeal, recognizing that the lean season we have to extend it. So mostly, the USA, Japan, and then now there is a new group of partners through the private sector that are coming in. The African Development Bank, in fact, we had some discussions with them and they're looking at providing some funds. So we recognize that over the last 2 years, most of the donors are experiencing donor fatigue, particularly with the conflicts in South Sudan, in Syria, in Iraq, and they've been contributing a lot towards humanitarian efforts. So now it is a test of, the donor strength. And that's why we have to come up with innovative ways to be very cost effective, cost efficient, to make sure that every dollar counts, recognizing that we would not have all our needs. I believe, just like when after the ZIMVAC of 2015, they projected 1.5 million Zimbabweans who would be challenged in their food access from October up to March. The international community together, we were able to reach, as of March, we were able to reach over 1 million of the 1.5. Now, I know it might not be regular, but I believe that, yes, we would be able to reach out to a significant number of households in the rural areas. For us, for example, the ZIMVAC has projected 2.8 million up to March, which they are extending up to April, and we are looking at, a planned figure of about 1 million. We know there are other players who are bringing in, resources to the theater. So we are hopeful. The indications that we are having is that, yes, the donors would come in. The only major challenge is, as you know, at times, the funding comes in bits. So you probably might gradually scale up to make sure that you reach as many people as and when the contributions come in. But I have faith in the donors, and Zimbabwe is a real case, and I think the donors would step in. I believe they would reason out, they would come in to support the people of Zimbabwe. The Minister of Public Sector, Labor and Social Welfare, and they have plainly told us that they want us to continue with the joint program, and they were going to make available more grains so that we continue, because we have indicated that because of the impact of the drought, our usual lean season ends in March. It starts in October and ends in March. Now we are extending it by 1 month. That is last year's lean season by 1 month in April. And then this year's lean season, which should start in October, we are starting in May. So they were very much welcome on that. And they've also made clear that they would want to continue with the joint program. Some areas where we think the government could, focus on would be not necessarily the reaction to a crisis, but more prevention, so that we start looking at some of the infrastructure that would help to enhance productivity, the irrigation schemes, the inputs, on time. These would all contribute to increasing productivity, in the country. So there is, yes, a lot of areas where a lot could be done, but in terms of responding to this immediate situation, we've seen a lot of effort on the part of the government, to alleviate, the sufferings, that people, particularly in the rural areas. In fact, I'm using now to discredit some of the perception that, the people in the rural area are food dependent, that they depend on food assistance. You know, I was in Lupane and in Binga 2 weeks ago, right into the wards. And what I saw has sort of proven to me that the average man in the rural area does not want to sit down and then receive handouts. They are involved in a number of community activities. If I tell you, over the last 2 years, WFP has been able to work with communities to construct over 2,000 community assets, ranging from deep tanks to dams, weir dams, to irrigation schemes, to develop nutrition garden, vegetable gardens. And this is based on the priority of these communities. So I think, on average, the average Zimbabwean community would rather prefer to see some contribution towards developing or improving the livelihoods of the community. Very few, you would probably say, would sit and wait for assistance coming from out. It was very evident in Lupani. It was very evident in Binga. These are two key areas that I've just returned from, and I saw that with my own eyes.